You're watching the Leading Women debate here on CNBC Africa. Welcome back, and just reminding you of the women we're speaking to tonight. We have Tsidi Mogabudi. She is the Executive Director, Infrastructure, Government and Healthcare at KPMG South Africa. Nikki Newton-King, the CEO of the JSE, and Phuthi Mahanyele, the CEO of the Shanduka Group. Let's pick up from where we left. How do you define yourself as a leader?
I would like to think that I empower the people that I work with. I like to work with people that are very capable and who don't require a lot of, micromanaging. I used to hate being micromanaged as well, so I try not to do that. I'd like to think that I'm empathetic, that I show a lot of empathy towards, my colleagues and team members, and that I give the right support that's required, because what I found as a leader is that it's important to be able to play different roles, because people go through different circumstances and they need that support from you as a leader. I'd like to think that I show a lot of passion and a lot of energy to when I come to work, and that I make people feel energized in the workplace. That's how I define myself.
Nikki, you also referred to how important it is to surround yourself with the right people. How do you define the right type of person?
I definitely start with energy. I start with high intellectually capable people. It's that much easier to do things if people have the MIPS to start off with. But I'm wanting people who are committed to what we're trying to do rather than to their status, and who are prepared to play the team game rather than the me, myself, and I game.
Tsidi, when it comes to building a team, where do we start?
Yes, I think it's very important that the team see you as a role model. We always say that the tone at the top is important, and I believe that your team is going to do what you do. So that is how I develop my team. I set an example with myself.
I think again I want to come back to this not airbrushing the reality. We've made mistakes. We've all made many, many mistakes, and it's how we learn. What's the biggest mistake you've learned in?
Okay. So when I was working in New York, I emulated the partners, particularly the female partners in the organization. And they had a particular stance, with respect to managing the team. And I thought that, working in that environment, I thought that was the way that you do things. And so I adopted a very sort of abrasive, very sort of difficult way of managing and leading people. So when I came to South Africa, and I had a team of people. I mean, first of all, I had disciplinary hearings going, like you cannot believe.
I'm only laughing because it sounds very much like a number of us sitting around the room here.
But the funny thing about it was that I would go home and I would be so tired, and I would be, in so much pain, because, when you're giving pain to somebody else, you're feeling it as well. And it was having gone through that process that I realized that I really needed to do something around myself. And that was coming back to being a lot more authentic. And I had to become comfortable with leading in a manner that was authentic to me and my own experiences. And that's when I changed, I think.
I think the biggest mistake one can make is forgetting that there are multiple perspectives to any given story. And so if you don't take time to actively listen, not listen to what you want to hear, but actively listen, and really take the trouble to understand the issues that are presented, you will jump to the wrong conclusion. And there are a number of times where I would have wished to go a little slower.
Tsidi, any life-changing mistake that you've made?
Oh, yes.
We've only got 10 minutes for that.
I know. I can write the whole book, I'm sure, given the number of years I've been in this field. But the biggest mistake that I made, I became very aggressive in my operations. I've led men in my lifetime, even up to today. People reporting to me are men, white males, and that created this level of being aggressive to actually make my case. And that's really about 20 years ago. That level of aggression, of actually forgetting your authenticity, what Nikki was talking about, but wanting to be them. That's the biggest mistake that you can ever make. because then you are not operating at your right ability and your potential.
How did you change? What caused you to change?
I recognized that in that process, because in that process I was losing people. You actually lose respect by operating that way. So I recognized that I'm losing respect, I'm losing teams, you know, and that was a big lesson for me, to actually recognize my own abilities, that, hang on, you have such a great EQ, you know, emotional intelligence in those board meetings, that I started operating within my potentials. And that immediately bring back your team back to you and respect you as a leader.
Mentorship. We all bandy about this term mentorship, and hopefully we're all doing it in some way. But are you taking it seriously?
I do. I spend a lot of time mentoring young people and young women particularly. And I, once again, it's something that I know that, you know, I had a lot of support through mentoring. So therefore I give a lot of mentoring time, and through various medium. I find that because of time constraints, I can't always meet with the people that I'm mentoring. So therefore communicate with them continuously. But I spend a lot of my own free time on mentoring young people, yeah.
And Nikki, it's also something very close to your heart.
It's absolutely critical. I think it was Madeleine Albright who said there's a special place down there for women who aren't prepared to mentor other women. So I mean, I look at this in a range of things. I have some formal mentor arrangements, but I also have a pretty clear concept that people watch what I do and how I do it, and want to ask me questions. When I took over, for instance, at the stock exchange, it was an open invitation to anybody to come and ask me whatever they wanted, and a lot of it was exactly on this topic, and it was from men and women. And then it creates a level for them to feel, hold on, I can talk to this person about things that are essentially what you would raise in a mentorship environment, but much less structured than the formal ones that I've got. But you have a responsibility.
Tidi, you must have a number of initiatives on this front as well.
Yes, it's a very big responsibility. If we are really going to start talking about captains of industries and see those as men only, then we have a responsibility to actually make sure that captains of industries, as we call them, are both males and females. So I've taken my role as a mentor very seriously, both mentoring on a one-on-one basis at work. I actually have the ability of identifying people's potentials. I call it maximizing a potential, and see your potential and actually start maximizing that potential as an individual. Do it in counseling sessions when I counsel people at work, but also outside work, because I take this wholeness balance very, very seriously, the total person. So I mentor at that level as well. But I do mentor groups of women. You know, when we started the African Women Chartered Accountants, it was around mentoring the young CAs into their next level of being in boards, of being moving into the management, top management positions. So there was that mentoring level as well as groups of people. That's my passion, basically.
At this point, I want to just take a moment to share a story, and it happened in Nikki Newton-King's office when I approached her about this debate. I said, Nikki, would you join us for the Leading Women debate? Just one of the events that you do, because I know that, as you said, you've only done 7 evening events this year, so we're very, very lucky to have you here. And I really wanted to talk about work-life balance. And then I thought, I was sitting there and I thought, now how can I tell her that I want to speak about something so simple? And she started with this amazing story that she'd been sitting chatting to Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF. And she said, Bronwyn, the interesting thing is that we weren't talking about the economic downturn or, women in executive positions. She said, I started chatting about work-life balance. So I took the gap and said, right, can you join me on this panel because we want to talk about work-life balance. And that's the reality. I think that so many of us are scared to share the story.
Yes.
And every time we do sit down, we've got so much to share and learn from. And that in itself is mentorship.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
If you were to give one lesson, one key word of advice to young women wanting to replicate the success that you've achieved, what would that be?
Have confidence. in your capabilities. Have confidence. For me, I think one of the worst things that can happen is you've got the capabilities, you've worked hard, you've learned so much, and you don't have the competence, the confidence to assert it and to, to put it out there.
Zidi?
Yes, never lose sight of your potential, because you have the potential in you. And your responsibility, young woman, is to maximize your potential.
I would say it's do what you're passionate about, not what other people expect you to do.
Yeah.
And passion then makes it not like a job.
Yes.
Exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
We're going to open up to the audience now and questions, hopefully getting some interaction from those of you that do have burning questions for our panel of experts. And a mic will be deployed to you. Thank you very much. If you could stand up.
My name is CJ. I'm a partner at Ernst & Young. And one of the things that I really battle with is the fact that we start with the same number of women and men starting the race, so to speak. And we end up with this 4% at the end of it. And in a number of interactions now, I've had a lot of people say to me, but it's because women have the option. They have the option to stay at home. And I'd really like to get your take on that. Is that real? Is it just that we're lazy as corporates and we've said, well, if women want to go and stay at home, then they must go and stay at home? And how do we start to change that and have a different type of conversation as women in the workplace?
No hospital passes, lady.
Yeah.
Would you like to give it your best shot, Zidi?
Yes, let me attempt to respond to that. I think it's very important not to see that 4% as a guilt factor of actually saying we're not doing enough. It's not a guilt factor. I mean, guilt factor from a woman perspective. We shouldn't take it that way. That's the first starting point. But the second one as well is the mentorship and the legacy and all these things that we're talking about. Let's keep doing them. We must not stop. Very important that we keep doing all those things. And eventually, we are going to increase and change those 4%. That's my view. And I also think, the way I think about life as a person, I think of life very generational. And when I say let's keep doing, I am actually not saying CD keep doing. There's you know, where I left off, you start off and continue. Let's continue doing, because I do believe that the things that we're doing the right things.
If I can add to that, I think we're doing the right things, Ostidi, but it's not at the right pace. Because if we continue at this pace, it's going to take us another 50 years for us to get there, isn't it? So I 100% I agree with what you're saying. So I think that the problem is, whilst the environment is changing, organizations have not changed. You know, we still want to do things the same way, approach things the same way. And the reality is that in the same way that we're looking at transformation in terms of transforming the manner in which we operate our businesses, transforming the manner in which we interact with customers, etc., we need to be transforming the manner in which we look at how our business is made up. You know, and not enough of that is happening. I think the pace is still very slow.
The other thing about pace, though, is once you've started to establish the fact that women can thrive in a particular environment, it attracts more.
Yes.
The JSE today, I mean, the heart of financial capital, 500 people, half of the staff are women, and half of the executives, the senior management team are women. So it's more than possible to beat the 4%. You have to, though, work at creating that space. And once you've created that space, people are attracted to it.
Lulu?
Thank you very much, ladies. I think I'm going to pick up exactly where you left off, Nikki. Where I wanted to start is to say, if your voices were hoarse now and you were men, you would have said exactly what you said now. Am I right or am I wrong? So is there a difference between being a woman leader or a man leader? Because the conversation will be exactly the same. But having said that, what's different in your leadership than what Russell did? And with you and Ramaphosa. So how have you run the company differently? Can you just share that with us?
Well, in my case, it's interesting, because if you've spent 16 years as somebody's understudy, and really to a large extent my career has been formed by the privilege of working with him on the big project of transforming our financial markets, I've been given the starting position of a good understanding of the working parts. So I suppose my leadership style is very different. I'm very comfortable talking to people. I've got a very sort of open door policy, literally. The door is open. I can count in 7 months how many times my office door is closed. I said to all the staff, you come and walk in if you want to, and they do. Geez, I've never been here. I've worked here for 15 years. I've never even been in the chief executive's office. It's just a different style. It's not necessarily a better style, but it's my style. And my style is very much one where I want people to feel that they can ask me the questions that bother them as opposed to raise them in the air conditioning. I send every 3 weeks roundabout a note to, what I call a note from Nikki, and to the staff. And I'll deal with whatever the issues are that I think they might be interested in. Sometimes it's what I've been doing that week, sometimes it's big strategic issues, sometimes it's our financial performance. But I'm trying to create a space which is one where people feel that they should have a dialogue up and down the chain without feeling that there's a space that you only speak. And that's not because Russell created that environment, but that's most businesses are quite plateaued and started like that.
Yeah. I think what I would say, Lulu, is that if you look at our organization at Shanduka, I think the value set stays consistent, and so the values that we espouse as the leadership at Shanduka is consistent. There's no doubt. But I think as a female CEO, I've placed emphasis on certain things differently because of my own experiences as a female professional, and I do believe that if you've gone through a journey of your career as a woman, in my case a black woman, your experiences are shaped a little bit differently, and so you will place certain emphasis on things that perhaps a white male would not have placed on. So I think that there are just those little differences, but from a broader perspective I would say that there are certain things that stay consistent from a value set perspective. Yeah.
My name is Esther. I'm calling from Zanazo Staffing Solutions. Earlier on, I heard you talking about maintaining a balance in terms of the family life. At the same time, seizing the moment when the right opportunity comes. In my line of work, I find it much more easier for a man to headhunt a man to move from one province to relocate to the other province with ease, yes, taking into account the family environment. Whereas with women, oh no, how is this going to affect my family? Should I ask? Should I? And immediately you pick up, this is a no, no, no. Again, maintaining the family balance, seizing the moment. Isn't there a contradiction in terms? How do we reach that level of comfort to say, I am a woman, my partner will follow me because this is the right opportunity for the entire family. And as a result, we are losing quite a lot. It has been very difficult for me to try and headhunt people to go to Sanlam, Cape Town, from any other province, because for this particular lady, I'm not only talking about the issue of kids.
Lily wants to talk to them.
Anyone like to try to hand it that one?
It's a partnership, and I definitely think that if you're considering, when I was considering accepting this role, it was a discussion. What's it going to do to the way we run the family, the commitments, etc. I didn't see accepting a more senior role as my prerogative only. It was a family decision.
But what happens when you are both high flyers, senior executives at a corporate? Is it possible?
For me, it didn't work. I've had that, so yeah.
Done that.
Yeah. It's just a no-go area. One of you's got to.
It didn't work because you come back home and you're tired. You've been through some tough stuff at work and you want to talk about it, but he also wants to talk about what he's gone through, and I suppose being socialized the way that we socialized, when a man comes home he wants to be able to talk. You have to be giving the nurturing environment, but when you're also seeking to be nurtured yourself, it can become a problem, and then there's also the competitive element that can arise, whether wittingly or unwittingly, so it's a constant management, and I don't know, for couples who are able to do it, that's wonderful. I haven't been able to do that.
See, we're getting a consensus here. Do you agree you can't have two high-flying corporate execs in a family?
I suppose it did not work for me as well.
Clarity across the board.
It just did not work for me at that time, but I've learned what did not work.
I think the one question that, or the one issue that we certainly grapple with in a professional environment is, I think we are identifying a generation issue. And as much as you say that hard work gets you to the top, I think we've all got there, and we definitely is part of hard work. But what we certainly do find is the fact that not necessarily a younger generation, but certainly what generations want is not necessarily to do the hard work, and they want the life-work balance, and they want the necessary commensurate climb, as well as the necessary commensurate salary that goes with that. And I suppose the one question is to how do you retain talent with realizing that perhaps what you wanted or what you fought for 20 years ago and or what you're fighting and perhaps what we've worked till 4 in the morning is not necessarily what the generations want today. And how do we retain the young talent, in particular women as well, who want to go and have families, who want the careers but don't want to do the long hours, that want to do the careers, but work is not it anymore. You know, it's not an aspirational thing. It's a means to an end, and it's not what it's about anymore. That's certainly what we're finding, is that what we need to offer our associates is an issue of a very good environment, which I think we do, but what you need to give back is the identifying and realizing that there is life beyond work, and it's not about 24 hours to get to the top. There must be another way of doing that. Perhaps if I can ask you ladies how you manage it in your organizations, because it's certainly one of the things that we're looking at and trying to deal with.
Great question.
Yeah.
I think we're going to go through everybody, so
Sure.
let's start with you.
Yeah, sure. I think that the most important thing that we need to do is to win people's hearts. Because I think what we tend to do is we focus on winning their minds. And what the younger generation are looking for, they're not looking for people that are going to tell them the rules and they must follow this rule because this person of authority has told them to do this. They are looking for people that are going to inspire them. They want to be inspired and to believe it, so that you have to buy you have to get into their hearts. And once they are committed and they're inspired, they will put in the hours because they want to do it. They won't do it because they are told to do it or because you are in that position of authority and therefore they must listen to you. First of all, they want to respect you because you inspire that respect, because they see what you're doing or whatever it is that you're doing, it inspires respect. And having respected you, if you're inspiring them, I believe that if you win the hearts, that you can get them to commit more. That is that's the approach that I try to take anyway.
But Jackie, I think you are right. I do think there is a generational issue here, especially in professional services firms, which are all about selling time, and it is a little bit of needing to make a conscious adjustment when you are at the top end, which is this sort of more senior generations, that this is not how the younger generation wants to work, and they're not going to work if you insist that they do it that way, and they will give you more if you capture their hearts and you actually give them the flexibility. But on the other side, you do need the younger generation to recognize that remuneration comes with what your output is. I don't necessarily think it has to come with what your input is. So I mean, this concept that you must be seen at work and that determines how hard you've worked is, I think, very outdated. So there is a little bit of we're needing to sort of narrow the double here, but certainly from a leadership perspective, not insisting on a paradigm that says number of hours at work equates to how valuable you are to the firm, I think is important.
I think the war on talent is big in the professional services. It's a constant a problem that we are engaged in. 2 areas in terms of how we address it where I am, and I'm talking about the profession as a whole, because we do talk about these things as the profession, not necessarily my firm only. We talk about it from a profession perspective. And one of the ways that we are adopting is to identify people's skills. Be it, because at times we used to identify what we call the functional skills, but you need to identify all skills, in industry skills, and so on and so on, and incentivize people on their speciality rather than the echelons. you know, of you are an associate director or you are a partner and so on. Identify these sideways specialist skills and incentivize on that basis. And the second thing that we have started doing, and which our people have told us, our professional people, is employee engagement. Our employee engagement was different from what they expect it to be. So whereby now you are engaging with your professionals as professionals, rather than engaging with your professionals as executive partner talking to your associate director. So all those things are actually making our professional people to start becoming, having a sense of belonging in the environment.
We're out of time. I've got one closing question. Where are women doing business with women? Men, we know it used to be the old adage, the golf courses, sporting events, in boardrooms. I want to know, in closing, and this is a sales pitch for every woman who's about to network in this room, where are we concluding deals with one another? Puti?
Yeah, it's difficult to say.
Does this mean we're not concluding deals with one another?
I mean, you know, I don't have sort of a specific areas wherever, you know, we're working. Typically, it's in the office. You know, if there's something to be concluded, we'll work together on that. You know, but you know, I differentiate between my business time and my social time. So you know, I try not to mix the two together. You know, so yeah.
The dirty secret? On the bicycle.
Yes, you've got a 500-kilometer race coming up.
Kwibli and I are going to be doing a long bicycle ride. It's a very good opportunity to talk business. I actually do think it's somewhat in those sort of those type of leisure activities, but frankly also in the car park at school and before the concert starts.
Yeah. I think in the golf environment as well. You know that there are women who have formed women clubs in the golf fraternity. So women are doing business in the men's environment, which is golf. They're doing that. And also these bodies that we're talking about, like your AWCA, African Women Chartered Accountant Body, your IWF, International Women Forum, the one that is exciting me now, the Women Corporate Directors. It's precisely for what you're talking about, over and above business.
Ladies, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for the audience participation this evening and making this an interactive session. You've been watching the leading women debate here on CNBC Africa. We've been taking a holistic view at women in business with a strong focus on work-life balance. Thanks so much for joining us.